Let's jam. You guys don't know, but I just made a reference. Whenever we start this show, it goes three, two, one, and then let's jam. My name is Chris. This is C3 Films. I am with.
Cheryl.
And on our open discussion today, we are going to be talking about the show Cowboy Bebop. Not the anime, but the live action Netflix adaptation. So, here's the thing we are going to get into spoiler territory here. And if you have seen it, then feel free to stay and enjoy the conversation. But if you haven't seen it, go check it out on Netflix, watch it, then come back and if you're worried about spoilers. But in all honesty, the first episode is basically the first episode of anime, so you'll probably be fine if you've seen the anime. Either way, let's go ahead and just get right into it. So, Cheryl, I know that you're an anime fan just like me, but I know that you might not normally watch as many different animes as I do. But you have seen Cowboy Bebop in the past, right?
Wrong. I haven't
Oh
because
my god.
I didn't have cable. Boo. I actually didn't watch it. It was kind of cool though because I kind of wanted to go into this with like fresh eyes or like unbiased eyes. And I didn't want to watch the original anime before watching the live action version because I wanted to see if the live action version was actually good and not like a crowd pleaser because you were already a fan of Cowboy Bebop. And I have to say, I liked it. There were some problems, I guess. I was a little confused because I thought that Asimov was going to be the main villain because of how he was introduced. Um, and but then there was that whole other thing that we find out later. But that's what I thought, and that didn't turn out to be. But then at the very end, you find out who the main villain is going to be. So I was kind of like, okay, why did we meet two people that like just die later?
Yeah, and that's interesting because like I'm glad that you hadn't watched the anime because you can bring a new perspective. Because a lot of things that I ask people when talking about the show is if they think that someone who has no knowledge about Cowboy Bebop or any association with the anime could just watch it and enjoy it just as a type of sci-fi noir um, television series. And so I've seen the anime, but I've only watched Cowboy Bebop a few times, and I watched it mainly when I was in high school. So it's been a long time since I've seen it, but there are certain episodes that really stick out in your mind. The opening episode is one of them. And so this first episode is very similar to what the first episode in is of the anime, but the difference is the anime is like a 24-minute episode, while this is around 40 minutes or so. Um, but the structure of the anime almost kind of mirrors the structure of what they seem to be wanting to do with the show. And reminder, we're only talking about episode one here, but in the anime, it's episodic. So as opposed to like a lot of shows that we see now, there's serialized storytelling. There's one through line, and plot that carries you through the entire story. But many of the episodes of Cowboy Bebop, you can kind of watch on a whim out of order, and it doesn't matter so much because they are generally one-offs. So to answer your question about why we meet these people who generally don't matter, that's the reason because it's one the anime did it, but when the anime did it, it was made more clear that this is just going to be kind of like an episodic thing, and we're going to meet people slowly over time. Like we're not going to really try to get into the comparisons about it, but for instance, you don't meet Faye in episode one of the anime. You don't. I don't think you even meet Vicious in the first episode of the anime. Like the anime kind of drip feeds you like a kind of overarching story over the course of the full like I think 24 episode run. So the reason that they exist is because they were just characters that were in the anime, and it was just kind of like this is the first adventure of the people that are in the Bebop.
Yeah, and I figured that out by the end of the episode when we meet Vicious.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually kind of really liked the way that the episode was packaged. I did feel like I was watching something that was based on an anime because of the angles, all the close ups, and
Yeah,
even
very
like
comic booky.
Yeah, they're very
too.
comic booky. Even like the camera moves, very comic book like. So I felt like I was looking at a manga.
Mm.
And then I also thought that the characters were a little bit, especially Faye. I felt was a little bit too much for the acting. And I understand like that's how anime is, but like it just didn't like quite fit into a live action sense. Like I feel like it would have been better if she had just toned it down a little bit.
Yeah. So that actually is a criticism that I had too. I didn't mind like I said before, you don't meet Faye in the first episode of the anime, but the way it's done here, I don't mind meeting Faye in the first episode. I think it makes sense, but Faye's dialogue bugged the heck out of me. It to me it felt like a little kid who just learned how to curse and is going to just keep using those swear words over and over again because that's what seems like the cool thing to do. And I've been told that she gets better as a character in the experience with her, but on initial viewing, it took me aback, especially because it didn't seem like other characters were talking that way. Like when you watch a Quentin Tarantino movie, everyone kind of talks in the same kind of cadence and with the same kind of like swear words in their dialect because that's like the world that they're building. But the other characters didn't come across that way. So when you first meet Faye, it is like a punch in the face. It's like, whoa, wait a second, like what's happening now? So that was something that bothered me too.
I felt like she was an English dub. That's how I
Oh God,
felt.
yo, hey, the English dub of Cowboy Bebop is fantastic. It's actually the only version I've watched.
No, but I mean, like,
I
not a
know the bad
Cowboy
English dubs.
Bebop English dub, but a bad
Right.
English dub. Exactly. So, but yeah, that is how I felt about that. But otherwise, I thought, like, just the, like, production design choices and, I mentioned, like, the composition. I really like the composition of a lot of these shots. It's just very well thought out and very stylized, which I feel like watching it without having seen the anime, I felt like it was holding true to the anime. That was my thought. Then I went to watch the anime and I was like, okay, yeah, I see some things that are, a little bit different, but like in terms of like how it translated into a live action version, I actually thought they did a pretty good job. I know a lot of people still don't like it because they were fans of the anime. But like coming into it with like a fresh pair of eyes, I think it holds up.
Yeah, and to be fair, there are some changes even in the first episode because, like we said, the first episode is double the runtime of the original first episode of the anime. So there's going to be some things that they add. But one of the things that we always ask ourselves whenever we go into adaptations is why does this adaptation exist? If you already have a way to experience this medium visually, it's different than like taking a book which has no real visual medium and then turning it into a television show or movie. But it feels sometimes you want to ask a question if something already exists as an anime or a cartoon or a television show, why are we making it into a movie now or vice versa? And in the case of Cowboy Bebop, that's one of the questions you ask is what is this show going to do so that it's not just a shot for shot remake of the anime and it basically legitimizes its existence. And for this first episode, I got the feeling that it is leading into the right direction for making it stand out as something different because it's adding more context to these characters that we did not get in the anime. And that idea, and like I said, it's only the first episode that we know about right now, but that idea seems very good to me. And I like that idea because there's something that I can get from the live action show that I can't get from the anime. And yeah, you still want to make sure that certain things overlap because there's like iconic moments that you want to recreate, but there's got to be something that you do to make it your own. And I felt like this version of this story was trying to make it its own, and I can appreciate that at the very least, even if there's other things I don't like.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I really liked was they actually took some things from the anime shot for shot.
Yes.
And I think, like, if you're going to take an anime and make it a live action, do that. Do it because it's good. Like,
Mhm.
and they picked like really good ones to steal. So it's not like they picked stupid ones. It's not a shot for shot thing, copy of the anime, which I think is good. Like, I don't think you should do that. If you're gonna do that, like we had talked about previously, like make it your own. And I agree. I think that's what they did, but they still took elements, and they took good elements. They took the right elements from the anime. One of the comments, though, that I was getting from like some of the people that I was watching with is that they maybe might have missed a little bit about Spike,
Yeah.
and I could see that because the whole theme of him is jazz, right? And the whole point of jazz is kind of going with the flow and like being kind of impromptu and just going with whatever's happening. Um,
Yeah.
and the live action Spike doesn't really do that. He doesn't really have that. Like, yes, we have jazz music, but I think they missed that when they were translating that. They missed that part of his character. So that was something that I wouldn't have noticed myself because I'm not a bebop fan. But not knowing that, I still felt it like it was fine. But if you were a fan of the anime, I could see why you don't like that.
And one of the things I think is very hard to capture is on screen is Spike's fighting style, and making it look real. Because his fighting style is very fluid. It's like water. He kind of flows in ebbs in and out of combat. And I think that John Cho does a fine job of having, of making it look like he can fight. But the fighting isn't the same type of style as the character in the anime, and like I just said, I do think that that's very hard to replicate in real life and make it look like they're still doing hits that would actually hurt a human being. um but going into that though, I do think that the live action is well cast. I like John Cho as Spike. I forget this guy's name. I think it's Mustafa, but the guy who plays Jet. I like him as Jet. And I mean, we've already talked about Faye. I hear she gets better, but like, I don't know if that's so much the actor as it is the writing. But based off of the first initial meeting of Faye, I'm not a fan.
Yeah. I would agree. I really like the way they casted Spike and Jet. But I don't know about Faye. The other thing I kind of, after getting to see the anime, that I really didn't enjoy is the way they portrayed Katarina. Because in the anime, she's kind of like awesome and she can like hold her own. She has a gun, she helps with the fighting, and spoiler alert for the anime, she actually kills
He's the one
Asimov.
who kills Asimov. Yep.
Yeah.
That's a
Um,
big difference from the two.
yeah. And they just made her completely different in the live action version, and I don't really know why. I think maybe so that Spike can have like his memories about like how he feels about that other girl.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think it like I feel like it could still have been done. Because obviously he has rose-colored glasses on when he sees Katarina, so I don't see why they couldn't just keep her character the way she was and the ending for that first episode exactly the same as it was. There's just that slight character change kind of ruined it for me because I actually didn't really like that character in the live action version. And then when I watched the anime, I was like, why didn't they just do that?
Yeah. See, that's where we start coming into like the challenge when it comes to adaptations, right? Because if you're going to add more to these characters, they have to feel like they're still a part of who they were. So if you do something like they did with Katarina, that's just a complete change of her character. And therefore, it doesn't feel as good if you're coming in. I mean, you watched it first without knowing who she was or what she was based off of, and you didn't like it. And then when you saw what she was based off, it made you even more upset because you're like, it was done better in this other one. So in this case, I think that when you make an adaptation, it is the most important to stay true to the characters, even if you want to expand on what makes them tick. And when you expand on what makes them tick, it has to be believably something that could occur within the rules of the world that has been created before you started making this adaptation.
Right. And in hindsight, it was like, a bunch of characters that were only in one episode, both in this live
Yes.
action and the anime. But like, if you think about it, like, that's all the more reason to not change it because they're such minor characters that
Yeah.
like there's just no reason to change it. So I don't understand the choice of why they made that decision. Maybe I'll find out later. Maybe it has something to do with that blonde. But I mean, I at this moment don't understand why that change was made.
Yeah, and what as someone who watches the stuff from the before, it makes you ask, well, what else are they going to change? And then it makes you worried. So as an introductory episode for fans of the anime to get on board, it doesn't leave a good taste in your mouth because all of a sudden you're asking, okay, they're making some pretty significant changes. I don't know how I feel about this. So I don't think adaptations are easy. And when we get to the characters of Spike and Jet, I do like the interplay that they have with each other, like seeing them talk to each other, mess with each other, joke around. I do like how the anime builds their relationship with, excuse me, I do like how the live action builds their relationship within the first episode. I will say personally, I'm not too on board with Jet being seeming like an absent father, because that is not something that was in the anime. Jet also his ethnicity wasn't expressly stated in the anime, so they made a choice to make him like a brown man in this show, which is fine. He looks good as the character, but then when you add something about this guy being a divorced absent father, then it starts to bother me because that's like a choice that you made, not necessarily a choice you got from the anime. And then I have to ask why you made that choice specifically. So I've been told what that it's not as bad as it looks, and it gets better. But since we're only talking about the first episode here, and that's all I've seen and have to go off of, the feeling I got when I saw that did not feel good because that was an addition that felt like it did not necessarily feel like it would be a part of the character, and it felt more like a casting slash stereotypical writing choice than an organic part of who this character is.
Yeah, I thought it was a little weird too after going back and watching the anime version. I was like, why did they feel the need to add this past, so to
Yeah.
say, to Jet's character? And then I was like, maybe they're trying to build the character up a little bit more and like give him more, fluff, give him more uh layers and stuff, but I don't think it was necessary. I thought Jet was fine the way Jet was, and maybe they're gonna do something with that later. Maybe they're trying to raise the stakes, give him a reason to push Spike
Like,
to do things. But I mean, I don't think he really needed that reason. Like, Jet is already like that. He's a stubborn guy, and that's all you really need is him to just be a stubborn person.
yeah,
So,
agreed. And like I remember thinking to myself that it also felt weird that so much of his motivations, including them doing something that could get them killed, was just based around wanting to get a gift for his daughter. Like, just logically, that felt silly to me. If you're bounty hunters and you know that your lives are on the line when you go for these bounties, and you're going to take a bounty that's actually dangerous, to push so hard just because you want a gift for your daughter when it could result in your death or the death of your partner just rang so untrue to me. So I did not like that.
Yeah, that was really weird. I agree. It didn't make sense. I was like, why are they? And then they had that whole thing in the office with that officer who was like, "Oh, your ex-wife told me." Like, I was like, when I was watching the live action version the first time, I was like, okay, this is a little like they're making a really big deal out of it. So when I watched the anime, I was like, wow, like all this is not even there. It's just
Right.
a whole extra thing of like, and of course, it's the thing that doesn't really make sense to me.
Right. And they're trying to hint at what the future story is to come because Jet's story in the anime was that he was betrayed by his partner. That's kind of and Jet was a cop, I believe, and he was like betrayed by that partner that he was talking to in there. So I think they're just trying to start to like kind of set up that dynamic and that backstory. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of things that I feel like one of the things I liked about the anime was that it drip fed us more information so that we could slowly get to know these people. And this first episode really felt like they wanted to get all the things in there that they could right away because as we both know when you're making a television pilot it's like hook them with the first sentence or try to get them as on board as you can. You got to go 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 because people aren't going to tune in afterwards. But yeah, I don't know, and I can't say what the answer is, but I do feel like this first episode is very imbalanced. There's things that I really like, and there's things that I really don't like. So as a first episode, I don't. I mean, I watched this first episode, and I don't feel myself wanting to immediately go and watch the second. If I'm being honest.
Yeah, that's funny. Because I've heard a lot of people say that. And I do want to keep watching it, but I sort of wanted to finish watching the anime first because I just wanted to appreciate what they'd done first before continuing to watch the live action, and I just hadn't had the time to do that yet. But I will say, can we talk a little bit about the credits?
You're talking about the opening credits?
Yeah, because they bravo to the opening credits. That was spot on. It wasn't, completely identical, but they stuck pretty damn near close to it, and
Good.
it is just on par.
Yeah, it's the opening credits is phenomenal. Like I love what they did. I love the homage that they pay to the original anime. And this is one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is that because I know you're going through the anime now, so you probably weren't as familiar with the original soundtrack of the anime and the score that is included, but a lot of songs from the anime are used in this live action. For instance, they have the same opening Tank, and Tank is amazing. Tank is one of the things that actually set the anime apart from other anime because there was no other anime opening like it. And it's one of those things where it's just like you can't even skip it. I had friends that did not watch anime, but that were in like jazz band, and I would play them Tank, and they would love it, and then be surprised when I told them that it's the opening to an anime. So the music and you mentioned a little bit earlier about how jazz is a part of Spike and everything and how it's this kind of this future storyline with all this space age technology, but it's based on this music that's rooted in the past. And it's kind of this really cool dichotomy with how the music and the jazz plays such a large role on the overarching like tone of the anime. And then they took a lot of that same music and applied it to the live action. So my question for you is when you're watching it, do you still feel the same feeling that you were starting to get when you watched the anime and heard these songs? And were you able to try to pick out any original songs that might have stood out that you might not have been familiar with?
I
Which might be a little hard since
definitely,
you're not.
yeah, I definitely didn't pick up on the other ones, but the main theme, yeah, because that the main theme is so iconic. It's so memorable. It's so good. Like I can like hear it in my head right now just thinking about it because it's so good. Um, but like in terms of the music in the live action version, I really liked it. And so now that you and I was gonna say like their music choices were so good, and like now you're telling me that it's because they took it actually from the anime. Go figure. But again, like other like like we had mentioned, if you were going to remake something, take the good elements, which I
Mm-hmm.
think they did a pretty good job with. And the music is definitely one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. The soundtrack I still would listen to up until today, just the whole soundtrack because it stands the test of time. It's that good. And I noticed that they had a couple of remixes of the old school soundtrack, so I do have to admit that I do like when adaptations do that. If they take an old score and they kind of give their own little spin to it, that's kind of cool. So I do want to. I want to kind of hear more original music for this, but the other thing is that I know that they got the band, the Seatbelts, back together to do some music for the live action, which makes me ask if they came up with any original scores or excuse me, original tracks, or if it's still just kind of reprises of old school songs.
That's cool. I didn't know they got a chance to do that, but yeah, like that's commitment, and I think that's why it turned out better than any other adaptation of an anime that I've seen or that I know of. Just thinking
Right.
about Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, right. Right.
Boo.
This is definitely a step up from that.
Yeah.
But we have to talk about it at the point that we're recording this show, which it comes after the news that we've gotten from Netflix that they will not be renewing Cowboy Bebop for a second season. So as we're talking about it right now, Cowboy Bebop has been confirmed to be canceled. And I guess I just want to get your thoughts on how you feel about that. I know you haven't finished it, neither one of us have yet, but is that something that you saw coming, or do you feel like it's fair? How do you feel about that?
I didn't see it coming, so I don't have any strong opinions about it, especially since I didn't finish either version yet. So I think I probably would be disappointed if they didn't finish the arc, the whole story, because I know Cowboy Bebop, the anime, has a definitive end, because the anime ends after like, what, 24 episodes or something? So I actually didn't think that there would be more than one season on Netflix, because of the fact that the anime is short. So I'm surprised that there is a cancellation. So now I'm kind of worried that
Yeah.
they were going to try to stretch this out. So we'll just have to see how it goes. But I hope they finished. I hope they finished it. It doesn't sound like they did. So I feel like we're gonna be unpleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and I think I feel bad for the actors that really wanted to work on this. I know John Cho really devoted a lot of time and energy to getting his body in the right shape to play Spike. You know, a lot of people were giving him flack for being older than Spike. Like I think John Cho's in his 40s. Spike, the character, is like in his early 20s. And so people were saying he was too old to play the character, but he did his best to try to embody that character. So because of the hard work that he and others like him put into the show, I really feel disappointed that it got canceled, especially because, like you said, it sounds like they didn't finish their story. But when I eventually go and watch the rest of it, I'll be able to definitively tell you if it makes sense to me or not, or if it seems like it was warranted. This show feels like it is a very polarizing show where I've talked to people that have said they hate it, and I've talked to people that said that it's not that bad and that it gets better over time. So I don't know where me and you will fall on at the end of it, but I do at least want to finish it. Even if it's not something I was like I wanted to like watch right away, I do still want to watch it for the same reason that you brought up of wanting to see what they did differently and how they paid homage in different ways and also to see if the it can stand on its own.
Yeah, and there are things that I kind of like. I do definitely want to finish it because I feel like the live action version left me with more of a cliffhanger than the anime did. They did have those opening scenes where something happened to Spike, um, and but they don't really introduce a whole lot of that at the beginning
Yeah.
in the anime, but they do in the live action version, and so I'm kind of invested now in knowing like who is Vicious, what is their relationship, why did they call him Fearless? That's such a cool nickname.
That's an
Um,
anime. That's a live action thing only thing, by the way. That was not in the anime.
oh, okay. Well, I like it. They make Spike so cool in that way. And and I think like it kind of if they didn't do that in the live action version, I'm not sure how Spike's character would hold up in comparison to the anime because that whole thing about giving him a badass name and everything, fearless, and making him kind of like John Wick, kind of adds like another level to his character that I feel isn't like lacking in the anime, but I think it makes it comparable.
Yeah. And I think that's fair, and that's exactly what we're talking about. If you're going to do an adaptation, you want to do something like that. It's comparable. It's not exactly the same, but it can also stand on its own as a character. So that's absolutely great, and that's like I think that's what they would want to have people feel in general when they watch their show. But we'll see how they did as we continue watching. Um, we have been talking for a little bit now, so we are coming up on time. Is there anything else that you want to get off your chest before we call it here?
Yeah, just one small thing at the end when they were showing us the blonde with Vicious. I
Yeah,
really
Julia.
really wish that they didn't show her face.
Oh, yes, I agree with you there.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
they made it so mysterious, and then like they didn't give us any um, you know, build up on like, oh, who is this? Who is this? And then they just showed us her face. Like, oh,
yeah.
okay, sure.
Like I said, that first episode is very mixed because it feels like they're trying to just throw everything that they can in that first episode to just try to. They don't. It's weird because they have some mysteries, but there's other things that could afford to be mysteries, like Julia's face when they spent the whole episode just showing like parts of bodies and stuff that they didn't need to show her face at the end. Especially since they show us Vicious in the same episode. We don't need both. You don't need to show us Vicious and Julia in the same episode. You could show us Vicious and then save Julia for another episode, or you could even not even show us Vicious in the first episode. You could just show some mysterious swordman that kills somebody, and then we meet Vicious later. But yeah, I agree. They didn't need to do that.
Yeah, keep some mystery.
So but that's what we thought about the first episode of Cowboy Bebop. But what did you guys out there? What did you guys think about the first episode? Did you like it? Did you see the anime? Did you think that the anime is being treated with respect in regards to the live action, or do you feel like they just completely missed the mark? Whatever you thought about it, comment below. Let us know. And when you're down there, if you give us a like, share, and subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next time.